Hi, I'm Patricia Rawlinson, and this is my new Gourmet Cookbook stand. This is a really cool little surface. Everything comes apart and it knocks down flat for storage. And what's really cool is you can take these little panels off, you can flip them over, you can paint on the back side, and you can buy new ones for really cheap, and then you can have a 4-season cookbook stand for your kitchen. And what's really fantastic, it's got little guards to prevent things from falling off. But if you pretend like this is a tablet, you could put your tablet right there as well, so you could use it for multi-purpose cookbook or tablet stand. But it's meant to be decorative when you're not using it, but it's going to be totally functional when you are. And what's fantastic is we've got a couple of different versions as well for different decor styles. Okay, so this one is a scroll top kind of version. And these are not painted. This one is a rustic wood with some kind of neat rustic looking hinges, pardon me. And then this one's just more of a classic kind of colonial kind of look. Okay, ignore my little smudge marks all over. We've been playing with the prototypes. But they all have the same accepting place for the little changeable stand, and so you can change out all of them and make them however you like. And the neat thing is, because it's just a rectangle surface, you could very easily adapt any pattern to it. So you don't have to, wait for me to come out with patterns. You can certainly use anything you've got in your magazines or your stash. So this project, I have to crack up laughing because I love these grapes, and these were all done with the stencils. So if you want to see something kind of magical happen, stencils and dome brushes and just scumbling. Your 2-year-old could do this and do a pretty passable job, so I'll show you how that works. I've got some modeling paste pushed through stencils over here. We've got some new interference mediums where the gold disappears but appears again. It's just really cool. We've got a lot of really neat techniques with this project, so I know you're going to enjoy it. Let's get painting. Assembling and disassembling your cookbook stand is super simple. So these little guys right here are made so that they have just a little bit of flex. Just going to pop that right on there, get it all lined up, and it'll snap kind of into that little hole right there. Okay, this is your reversible seasonal panel, and that just pops right on in there, so it's super sturdy. And then you can pop it out, paint the back side, and you get other panels, and then you can change it out for all your seasons. And then the back has a little sturdy little bracket that just slides in like that, and that supports it so that any weighty kind of cookbook tome doesn't affect anything. And then this works on the same idea as this cell phone stand or smartphone stand. You just slide the base in, and make sure you just don't put too much thick paint. If you do paint too thickly, use a sanding disc and just sand the little crevice. So they're made to be a little bit sloppy at first, so make sure you do paint it, and then it'll fit nice and snug. But if you need it to be snugger, put a little more paint. If you need it to be looser, sand it a little bit. And this is a Note 4, which is a huge, ginormous phone. It's almost like a little iPad mini kind of thing. And it even still fits on the cell phone stand. And what I love about it is it fits sideways too. But what I really wanted when we went here for cookbook, you could use this for your tablet, but we needed to have our pages prevented from turning. But you could still, easily just put your cell phone up there when you are trying to cook from, an app or something like that. And what I love about this is real skinny, real flat. You can just store it away. If you don't want it out, just put it away. So it's super easy to disassemble and store. So what we're going to do is we're going to use multi-purpose sealer. And since I have a lot of cutouts, I'm going to use a roller. And what I want to do with the roller in my cutouts is, now if you care about it being sealed in the cracks, go ahead and spray it. But I'm just going to roll right over the tops, being careful not to have too much medium. Okay, and that's going to get everybody just nice and prepped. And I'll do both sides of my panel to keep it nice and flat. Okay, I've got a little bit of foaming up. In order to eliminate the foamy kind of residue in the cracks, I'll just go ahead and stipple with my China bristle stippler, and that'll clean everybody up. And it's also a way that you can add the varnish there. And one thing I'd like to point out, you could actually paint both sides of this because this is universal one way or the other. So if you wanted a different color, you know, for spring or a light project, you could have like a soft eggshell green on one side and black on the other or something like that. Okay, when you're working on a nonstick craft mat, cleanup is a super duper snap. You squirt with some water and use your little handy scraper so you don't poke holes in things. And even that all-purpose sealer will come right off. And you just wipe with a paper towel. Okay, I'm going to take my traditional burnt sienna and my soft black and make just a little brushy mix. I'm going to get this based in the background. It's really a lovely brown. I'm going to do a little magical kind of moment here. So just get a base coat on there, and I should really be using a mushroom sponge, but in this case I'm going to be doing a slip slap technique with this brush, so I'll just use the brush. Alright, we're going to brush on some drying time extender. Just dirty brush. I've got my paint in the medium, doesn't matter. The drying time extender is the important part of this magic act that I'm going to do right now. So make sure that you're using that. Okay, so now that's going to be nice and protected from drying too quickly. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to go into our red color. And we're just going to kind of smuts it around in the middle with some trailing out. Then we're going to go into our brown. Let's mix that brown. And we're going to just kind of make it be just soft and flowy. Don't want it quite so orange. I want to be like, what's going on back there, but not being orange. So I'm getting around the edges just to make sure it's based nicely. Okay, now I'll move that paint around, mixing those two colors. And so allow you plenty of open time. And now I'm going to pick up a little bit of black, and that's going to be my edge color. I don't want it black, 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 but I don't want it to be brown, brown, brown either. Okay, so we just mix those two together. As the paint starts wearing off your brush, start walking it towards that orange. Dabble around a little bit. Don't want that to look like a hole, so make sure it flows someplace, you know. If you get fingerprints from holding your project down, you can just go slip slap over them after you. Okay, and I need a paper towel. However, I don't have one. So I have to go find them. Alright, so I'm walking it in. And hang on. Discovery. I'm going to wipe out my medium and my paint because I want to get into that middle and just really soften my strokes out. Pretty magical. Okay, now for the fun. Let's see if we like this. Let's go into an 1/2 inch rake, and we'll get out a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and we're going to spatter onto our medium. I'll test spatter over here, and then what will happen is it'll start making these little magical circles in the medium. Now I'll get you in closer after we start drying. Let's see if I can show you. And I'm not seeing so much. Oh, I see them. Okay. They're so difficult to see in this light. Let's see if I can get you there. Okay, well, they're there. Okay, so we have this new medium called Media Fluid Acrylics, and this is an interference medium. And what that does is it does magical things that I actually don't even understand how it does it, but this is the gold, and what it does is it will pick up strong color on dark backgrounds, and it'll just kind of show, and it's kind of iridescent, but on light backgrounds it won't show at all. And it's very transparent, and so it's just going to give us a hint. And so I want to do this on these letters, and I'm just going to use a jumbo applicator. And let me show you. I mean, it's very sheer. The neat thing about these, so that's just got just a little hint of color. And it's going to pick up differently on the orange color, and differently on the dark black, and differently on the brown. So it kind of has almost like a mind of its own, or a living quality to it. So it'll change and morph as you go over your surface. Yeah, these paints, this is not even like it's paint. This is like a totally different kind of, it's like a medium in the paint line. And the interference paints are a medium, I guess. That's how they're correctly classified. Okay, I'll keep you here for just a minute while we finish. I could go in and I could put this savor word over here if I wanted to continue. I might need to fill in like that. Okay, let's take a look. Oh yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so you can see that it's just like it's almost like it was varnished on, but it's got like that little hint of gold going on. Just hinty hint. And it's going to change depending on how you flash the light at it. And I do think I want one more word over here, so let's get savor at least going off the page maybe. That's really cool. When you look at it face on, straight on, you can't almost tell that something's going on. I totally love the dome brushes for doing my stencils. I like that they're domed instead of flat, that for whatever reason it gives you a much higher degree of control. And then this, you'll notice that my brushes start getting, here, I'll show you a really good example. Okay, so when you first get them, they're kind of a little bit floppy, which works out anyway, but as you wear them down, you want to keep these ones that are just really tight, because they give you the most control when you're doing the dry rubbing. And so the more you use them, the better they get. So that's not usually the case with brushes. Alright, so we've got some leaves in our background. I'm a little bit worried about doing it too light on a dark background. So I'm going to go ahead and always when you're stippling onto stencils, you blunt things off on a paper towel. So I'll just go ahead and give those my background base coat, and it'll probably take 2 coats. Okay, now that I've got that color done, I'm going to change to my shorter brushes because I like the effect that I get with those. And you have to create your own shorter brushes. They just get better with wear. And you can see that I'm being very rough and rubbing them off, and that's what helps wear down the bristles. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my stencil, and we're going to highlight at the tips. This is called dry rubbing. This is how you're going to create lights and darks on your leaves. can leave some of that shading that's going to be kind of natural up the center of the leaf. And any of these little hairs that escape, you just brush them off. You can't be this mean to a brush and expect everything to be all peachy keen. Okay, I'm going to take a little peek. Okay, so we're getting a nice deep look. I'll change how I'm holding my brush down, my stencil down. My posture on my brush is straight up and down. I more than likely should be having a little piece of tape holding this, but it seems to be sticking down just fine. They changed the formulation on our Tack It over and over, so I haven't been able to find anything that I like. It's definitely a lot more perilous to do it this way without anything sticking, but what can you do when they change formulas? Okay, so this little bit right there is going to give me grief, so I'm just going to brush with the green of that little arm. Okay, and definitely we need a little bit more brightness on our stem and stuff. Take a look. Okay, nice and subtle. Gonna sneak up into celery green. Using a dirty brush, and what that means is it means my family of colors is going to all blend really well because the previous color is already in the brush. Okay, now we want these on the tips and not so far. We don't want to bring it as far in so that you get that fade. And then our final is going to be into wasabi. And that we're going to just save for the little tippy ends. Let's take a look. It's getting kind of nice. All right, I'm going to do a little bit deeper in the previous color, the celery green. Oops, and you can always tell if you have not spent enough time on the paper towel because you get a big old blob right when you set it down. You should have to work to get the color off of your brush. So I'm just kind of going inland a little bit more. Okay. So that's a lovely, nice start. And oh, I just love how those words are in the background like that. Isn't that just so cool? I love that they're transparent completely, but gold. That's just so strange. I will get over this, I promise. Okay, so now we're going to go onwards to our grape. And which way do I want my grapes to hang? Now I'm going to end up putting my grape leaf back on top, but I needed to see how I felt about positioning. So I wanted to start with my leaves. Okay, now the way this works is we've got a series of these grape overlays, and we're going to start with the filling in the background. And then we work our way through the layers and end up with just our highlights on top, and we're just going to do it all with stencils, which is awesome. So we're going to fill in the holes with black plum, and then what I'm going to do to keep my my frame really, really clean and tidy is we're going to stipple. inward from the edge just a little bit. And that's going to make sure that I'm not splaying out and stippling outward on my stencil. So I'll just tap to clean that up or make it clean. And then when I get into the middle, I'll do it all over effect. Okay, we're going to go into deep burgundy. Got my stencil laid out. Your edges should go slightly over the edge of your piece, and there's an etch line so you can match things up. And so the deep burgundy is going to just get scumbled on each of these grapes, just to give them an undercolor. So the soft black is, or the black plum is the deep dark, and then this is like their glow, if you will. Okay, we're going to switch to our crescent brush, and I'm going to use a smaller brush for my highlights. We're going to go into Country Red, and we're going to keep our highlights in the same same general location. So I'm going to pick an upper, and I could probably use a bigger brush. I am into a bigger size set of grapes than I have done previously, so I can move up. Okay, so we're going to go with our highlights with Country Red, and it's going to be fairly good size because this is the first highlight. If you get a hair stuck on there while you're doing dry rubbing, get it off and then do some more dry rubbing. That way you don't end up with a line through your grape. And we'll just repeat this on all of the grapes. Okay, we can take a peek. I did a second coat of the Country Red, and you can see how those are starting to pop. Isn't that just amazing how easy that is? Super simple. Okay, I'm going to fold this paper towel back over, and we'll go into Terra Coral next. And it's Dirty Brush. And that feels, you know, when you've been painting a long time, you can just kind of feel the weight of the brush, and you know that something's not going to be right. Like, I don't know what that is, but I'm usually right. And something says, go back and wipe again, do it. Okay, see how that's just building those colors. So really what these are, they're not grape stencils so much as they're kind of a mask for the other individual grapes. And I'll tell you what, it was no amount of work to get them laid out so it looked like a good bunch of grapes. That was really tricky. Okay, so I think we could go back and repeat one more time. Feel them. If they feel wet or sticky, get out of there. And when you repeat like that, you're going to repeat in a smaller condensed area. And now I need my littler brush. I don't know if I need to go 1/8. I'm going to have to go brush hunting. I've got a jillion of these and I run out all the time. I highly recommend at least 2 sets if you're going to be doing any amount of dry rubbing. These ones are more expensive than the domes. You can use the domes, but these have way more control. So then this is going to be like our little highlight step. So see how that just really brings that up on that grape, and we haven't even done our shading yet. Make sure you're dry so you don't dig a hole. Holes and highlights are bad. I'm going to get a plastic bag out and put my brushes in there, keep dumping them in water. And actually, you know what, let's do a little test. Let me get this done and I'll share my test with you. According to the industry experts, if you put a little hand sanitizer out, and see, I don't really want to wash this brush, but I'm going to go ahead and do it for the sake of the test. Hand sanitizer has alcohol on it, and alcohol evaporates really easily, and so water does not. So you can take the paint out, and seems like you might use a ton of this stuff. Okay, you know what, it's got a kind of dry feel. So I'll set this off to the side and see if I can use it when I need to go back to that size brush. Okay, I'm going to go one more time with my coral shell. That's getting a little too strong. I can glaze. That's my intention, is to break out some secret weapons and do some glazing with these to kind of change things up a little bit. Okay, it seems to turn out that that is a good idea if we're getting the brushes dry real quick. We're going to go back over our shading. Let's see if it removes our paint as we're like painting with it, right? We're going to go back over our highlights with a little bit of country red, and that'll kind of glaze them in just a little bit. It's kind of a neat little technique to have that be your base color, but then use it to kind of rouge over your highlights. Makes everybody kind of be part of the family. Then we'll go into black plum. And black plum is going to be our shady shade color. Get that all on there. Well, my brush now smells wonderful. I don't know what scent that is. It's got aloe and all kinds of stuff in it. Probably not great for painting with, but it smells great. Okay, so now we'll go up to soft black. Now what this is going to do on our edge grapes is it's going to make the edges disappear into that background, which will kind of be a cool thing. That's called softening your edge. And what that does is it allows your medium or your subject to fade into the background. And it just adds a more subtle kind of look to your painting. Okay, I think we're there on that. Look at how cool that is. I think these are just brilliant. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of a glaze shading just off to one side. Put that over there. And that's going to start making it kind of lift away. Need a little bit more water on my brush. Never fight your brush. If you need something else, go get it. I am going to show you the water drop technique. You just squirt until your water drops grow to the size that you think you're going to need. And instead of going and dipping into a deep water basin, I can suck up just one or two as I need. And I'm making a mix of the terra coral, the coral shell, and the butterscotch. Not one of them is making me super happy, so we'll just make a little mix. Okay, a little bit more water. And so doesn't that just make them pop forward? Okay, we basically are going to do the same techniques kind of over and over again. But this time, instead of deep burgundy, we're going to start with our country red. Okay, so get that nice and solid. I'm just doing a dry scumble here. It's going to take a little bit to get those little guys based. You could also just stipple. So maybe in that area, we'll just go ahead and do a little stipple action. Make sure you're aiming towards the edge of your stencil so that you get right up next to the line of the stencil. Okay, then next we're going to go into terra coral for our highlights. And keep them up in that upper quadrant right there. Make sure you're dry. Oops, make sure you dry off. Now we'll go into the butterscotch and a little bit of terra coral. And one thing that you can know is that as you get closer forward in your art, the warmer the colors, it'll pull forward and cool will push back, depending on your background color. So sometimes if you have a really cool background color and you put a warm color on top, it'll push forward first and it'll go opposite. If you do the opposite thing to it, it'll go the opposite way. Okay, so I'm just re-hitting them. And now we'll go just dirty brush into coral shell. See if we think that we're dry enough. I think I could go smaller brush. It's going to make that a little bit of a center highlight versus a highlight all over everything. See how that's making them just appear a little bit more round. And this can be stronger too, so you can have really kind of crunchy looking highlights. You don't have to have them all diffused. Okay. Okay, this rubbing alcohol does a really nice job of drying really quickly, so I'm really impressed with that. I'm not used to doing it though, so I'm having a hard time negotiating how to keep it neat and tidy. But I am glad not to have my brushes just sitting over in water, although that hasn't seemed to hurt them too bad. I wonder if you couldn't get an old towel and wipe the stuff off onto that, and then I wonder if it would wash out, because I hate just throwing away all these paper towels all the time. But acrylic paint just dries like plastic, so that just won't work. Alright, now we're going to go into that same little float of the terra coral, coral shell, and butterscotch. Just a little bit of each, so it's kind of 1, 1, 1. Make sure you have enough water, which is what I was struggling with earlier. And we're going to do that same little cast. Oh, I didn't shade. Okay, so we'll go do that next. Not quite ready for this step. Okay, so our shading step is exactly the same. I think I'm going to go in with a little bit of the deep burgundy, though, and see what we get. Can go up on that grape. Let me peel this guy off and let's see what we got. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. And so we just scumble right over the edge, but don't go into that bright highlight, that crunchy highlight that you put out there. And make sure you cup it along each edge. And the reason I chose the deep burgundy is because I had the red, the country red, as my base. So I want something just a little bit different to help set it out. Scumble that around. These are a little bit easier to paint than the littler grapes were. Okay, now we'll go dirty brush into the soft black. And then we'll repeat with the other, and it's the same technique as the last stencil. Okay, now we'll go ahead and float. I'm just blotting that far edge where I'm trailing off poorly. It's all about just being comfortable fixing things. So if you can fix things, then you can be a painter, because I break things all the time. Okay, getting cute. Alright, to base coat and get into all my cricks and crannies, I'm going to use an Italian sash brush. This is real floppy and it will kind of bend and manipulate to get into the crooks and crannies of this piece. I'm mixing my colors that I did for my base coat, and I'm going to pay attention to going at different angles, and I'm going to be on my non-stick mat so that I don't make a big mess, and then every now and again I'm going to pick up a little bit of black and put that in there with it. Okay, I don't want it just to be a brown thing, I want it to be a blackish, brownish, something-ish thing. And we can go back over and highlight too. And when you've done this to your painting table, this is when you're super happy you have a non-stick mat. My fingers, however, are not as non-stick as my mat. I should have put my gloves on. I made a big mess. But sometimes it's kind of fun to make a big mess, especially when you know that it's easy to clean up. Okay, so I'm back with the next layer. We've only got one more to go after this. And we're going to go into the Terra Coral, and we're going to repeat the same steps. So if nothing else, it's easy. And then we're going to make the grapes all kind of different at the end. Let you peek and see where I'm at. So it's coming together. We're just filling in all the grapes, and then we're going to glaze them to be a little bit different. Okay, one thing that I didn't like about how things worked out when I painted the grapes before is that these guys up here didn't have any kind of variation to them at all. So what I'm going to do is just find a grape that fits them and give it just a little bit of a highlight with the deep burgundy. So just find somebody that's kind of almost their size, use it as a mask. And that way it's just not flat back there. I just didn't like the flatness of it. And I'm not sure which ones they are, so I'm just going to do all the ones that are left, and then, yeah, that makes me a little happier. They just look a little more finished. Okay, and now I'll line up the last guy. Make sure I don't have paint transferring on. Okay, and we'll get those based and get going. Alright, we're going to go through and shade underneath some of the grapes with black plum. Might be able to just go straight into soft black. I've switched to my curved flat because it'll do the corners. That's why it's having a problem with the C-stroke. Okay, so that's what we're going to do to get that kind of deeper, a little depth. Especially where some of the grapes are really hanging over some of the other grapes. You could probably, no, I was going to say you could probably do something else, but I'm just, never mind. Okay, how are we looking? They're popping. Okay, we'll pick up a drop or two of water, keep everything flowing really well. Okay, so here's, I want you to see it kind of a little bit closer up. Let's see who I'm picking on. I'm going to pick on this guy right here. Bring that around the corner, tickle it if you have to. And that just really, really pushes that grape up top. Can you see how that did that? This guy right here really needs to be popped. So see how he's just okay. He's flat looking though. So we need him to elevate. Okay, see what that did? Let's get him elevated over here too. I don't want to outline his whole body, but that just moved him forward. Oh, we might need to elevate his whole body. Okay, maybe this guy right here. I'm just doing a really strong, tight float. Okay, and that's given everybody oomph. This guy right here. And the same thing over here around his backside here. Alright. So much fun to do that, isn't it? It just, like, suddenly it becomes, like, alive. Okay, so now we need to go in with our little dry rub. And we can touch in, I'm going to dirty it with, I'm going to have white and a little bit of the coral shell. And we're going to give that just a bigger cha-cha-cha. And don't be afraid to let some of them sit like that and be just like really strong little highlights. Not everywhere. Kind of more reserved for the big guns. See how that's moving everybody forward? Okay, I'm squinting my eyes now. This is the eye squinting stage. Okay, and now the piece de resistance. Let's see if we can't use our new media paints. These little puppies are magic. We're calling them Magic Juju. They are acrylic paints that have no filler. And what that means for us is that they're not going to be cloudy. So you can glaze them right over the top of things and it's not going to like base coat and it's not going to mask stuff. So what I want to see is if I can get a little bit kind of more vibrant color in maybe some of my shadow areas with the, what do I have here? Primary magenta. Okay, so that's got that on there. And I need to probably tone that back just a little. Maybe too magenta, so we'll just use a little bit of dark gray value 3 and we'll get a little mixy poo going of that color, and that's just going to be a lovely, that's just the same kind of thing that you do if you're mixing your regular acrylics. I just put a drop of that in there and see how that made it into almost like a little bit more of a purple. Okay, so now we can go into maybe some of our grapes over here. I'll glaze them, see what that does. That just gives it a vibrancy. I can bring it all the way across and over my highlight. Did you see what I did? It didn't do anything to my highlight, it just enhanced it. It's like blush for your cheeks. It doesn't change the color of your face, it just adds a little bit of shazowie. Okay, see how that's just making some of them richer? Love, 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 love. Okay, so now I'm going to go into, I think I'm going to go into my dioxazine purple, and that is also looking extraordinarily strong because that's what these are. See, this is what's cool about these, is they are so freaking powerful. So I'm going to just tone that back just a little bit because I'm not wanting screaming grapes, I'm just wanting vibrant grapes. And let's go into some of our cool sides of things. And let's tint. Okay, so that's got just a little bit of a purple cast. And I'm going to go ahead and mix with water. And because they're acrylics, they're going to get along just perfectly fine with everything that you've got now. I'm going to give some of these background grapes just that little bit of purple kiss. Okay, so now things start becoming a little bit more happy. Okay, and let's see, who else do we need to do? Maybe one over here. Okay, so now that one made my highlight a little bit purple, and so I'll just go right back in and put my highlight right back over the top. Because I don't want a purple highlight. That's not okay. Okay. Alright, I wanted my grapes to have a little bit of that look of bloom on them, so I'm going to go into French Grey Blue. I'm going to lay my masks or my stencils back over, and I like the idea of dry rubbing that so that it's not so pretty and floated looking. And I think that'll give us just that kind of look. Yeah, look at that. How easy that was. Awesome. Okay, so I'll just go with the individual ones, and I'll find the ones that are available. Don't run through your other stuff now. So make sure you keep it on the grape it belongs on. So yeah, that just really gives us some depth. Okay, and I'm wondering if that's about as far back as I want to go, and I think that might be. And I think now maybe I want to go into French Grey Blue and white. Since they ditched our light French Grey Blue, we have to mix. Okay, so I'll get you lined up. Ooh, 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 scream, 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 scream. So sometimes you can have that bloom a little bit kind of crazier in a little bit more places. Okay, that's just really cool. Oops. Go backwards to this one. And right now I just want to make sure my stencil lines up to my edge. Pretty darn cool. And I think we need a little bit down here on this dude. Maybe a little bit on him. See how that's just doing the thing. Oops, we need a bigger grape there. Okay. Now let's go into some lamp black. I think that's going to be maybe, yeah, soft black's not going to cut it. Maybe soft black plus lamp black. And now we kind of need to just do a little bit of drop shading. So we're going to pretend, get you on camera here, I'm going to pretend that this grape is casting shadows over on this side of the world. And we need to move it up from its background. I get to the end of these projects and I crowded myself out of all my space. Okay, now we're going to go in and just drop shadow that leaf and bring it up into behind the grape and then round it out, which is what is lovely about acrylic. curved flat brush is it's really easy to round out things. So tuck that in. You can tell I'm thinking because I shut up. Sorry. Alright, and then we'll go over here and we'll just tuck some of this in here and there. Keep it off your leaves. Okay, and that's just going to give us a lot more depth. Okay, we're going to go into the middle of our leaves, and I'm going to use black forest green, and I kind of jazz the leaves up just a little bit. And black forest green is kind of transparent, so it's going to kind of glaze over what I've done to other things. So it can brighten and do things like that. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to get into some kind of, let's get into the light avocado. And let's test that. A little bit of water. Okay, we'll give it some of its little leafy poo things. Okay, and that's going to give a little bit of detail, makes it look a little less stenciled. So we can also go in and highlight on our tendrils. Just pull kind of a little bit of a gnarly thing going on there. Okay, and then this one's going to come back, and then boogered that up just a little bit. Okay, and we're going to go up one more into celery green. And celery green, I'm just going to kind of let it trickle down the vine. And just kind of dance it around. Okay, and that just makes everything kind of come forward. Okay, but we wouldn't be fair if we didn't share some of the fun with the colors. Let's play with this. Okay, I've mixed, let's see, primary yellow, primary cyan, and a little bit of that gray value, number 3. And we're going to go in and give a little blue-green kiss. And so that's just glazing over the edge of that leaf. And we're going to go into our grapes and give that just a little bit here and there. Like the leaves are reflecting onto these grapes. Okay, kind of neat, huh? And we can glaze right over our stems and give that a little kiss of color too. Let's go behind so it's just going to glaze the highlight that I have down there. Pretty fun. So they're water soluble, so you can just go have a glazing good time. Okay, and that just makes it just fun. Holy crap, I love this. Okay, so now we're going to go in with our highlights, and I'm going to dull the highlights down. I'm going to mix my white with a little bit of that gray. Okay, and then I want to give them just that really kind of a little bit of a shine moment. Okay, so see what that's doing for us. Oops, if you can keep your hand going in the right direction. Every now and again, you just need to blot. Rougher highlight. Not bad for stenciled grapes. I do say so myself. Okay, I'm going to use the modeling paste. Get you on camera here. Got this taped off on the side. I just take my palette knife out. I think I'm going to mix it with a little teeny bit of soft black. I don't know if that's going to work very well because this is so heavily pigmented. Don't quite want it black, black, black. But I don't really want to work hard to make it another color. Okay, so I'm going to take this and we're going to just kind of create a texture that's kind of a flat leather kind of something or another. Not high, not low, not the same, not solid. Just really a little randomness here. And then kind of pop it and smooth it to get some more texture. Show you what that looks like. Oops. So it's got just a really kind of like a rough frosted, but it's really a low profile. And then always peel your tape as soon as you can so that you don't end up with problems. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of milk chocolate and a little bit of soft black and mix it with the white colored modeling paste and use high and throw it across the table. And it's going to make this textury awesomeness that doesn't tint and get muddy and yucky. Okay, and I just need nice and sheer. I'm just going to paint my letters with texture. You can go heavy or you can go light. You just scrape it off if you don't want so much on. Kind of want these standing up nice and tall, so I'm going a little bit heavy. And then I'll put them in front of a little dryer. Okay, and then what you do is you just peel off your stencil, just like so. Alright, and then I'm going to go get this in the dryer, and then I wash my stencil by laying it in the sink and then just rinsing it with cool water until it's clean. Okay, so this is what we've got so far. This is still a little bit tender right there, but I can move on to my next step while I'm waiting for that to cure. I want to share a really cool little thing that we have come up with. And that is a banding and decorating stencil. And sorry, mine are messy, but I've used them. So here's a clean one. So what this is a 1/4-inch band that comes like this. And what you're going to do is you're just going to lay it down where you want to band, and you just stencil it. Then if you want to have a check on your band, you lay the checks over, or if you want a stripe or a candy cane or whatever decoration you want, then you can put that over the top. You can stagger them and do it that way. And it comes in a couple of sizes. So we've got 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, and 1/16 inch. And they are so cool. They work really, really well. So, and I think today I need my 1/8 inch, which is this one. Alright, I'm going to use this ink sweeper because it's long and skinny. And I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm using plantation pine, but I'm not sure I'm liking plantation pine right now. I get out a little bit of our black forest green in. I think I'm going to mix 2 of those colors and maybe a touch of black. So what I just need is a bottle of black green. Let's just call it what it is, because this could get messy. Alright, so I'm still dirty brushing it, or dirty ink sweepering it. Okay. But what I want to do is pounce it all off before I come over here onto my piece. Okay, and just lift and see what we get. Ta-da! Easy, 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 easy. No taping, none of that stuff. So then you just give it a little squirt with the blow dryer and come and finish your other part of your line. Because it's not bridged, it makes it really, really easy. Okay. And that's bringing our green around just a little bit. And I have to decide what color I'm going to decorate this with. I think I'm going to do some just simple checks. And I think I'm going to need to be in a slightly brighter green. Okay, and it helps if you line it up at the bottom. Okay, so let's go into, well, let's see what just a brighter green does for us. I'm wondering about light avocado. Maybe not like everywhere. Yeah, that gives it a little bit of a jazzy kind of color. Line that up and I'll figure out where my other checks are lined at. And what I like about this too is you don't have to worry about measuring. Okay, perfectly banded, perfectly decorated, perfectly awesome little checks. Now I think I may want a little bit of chicken wire going around my edge. And I think I want that in black. And I may want to do a little slide over and do a little bit of gold too. So I'll just go here and we'll see what we see, and I'll spit on it and wipe it off if I don't like it. So make sure we like our positioning, make sure we're fairly straight. And I want that closer up to the edge. I don't like these hangers on being the ones, you know, on there. The ones that you see first. Okay, so got my dome brush. Just go right over the edge. Okay, let's take a peek. I can't really see it, so we'll try harder. Yeah, you know, that's adding just a little bit of something. Kind of bringing it in from the sides. It countrifies it a little bit. that's kind of neat. I don't know if you can see that or not. I can see it. It's just enough. Okay, I'm going to turn this way. Get it kind of straight. And we'll repeat on the other side. Okay, I've laid the bistro stencil back over, and I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow and the blue media. And I'm just going to catch the high points. Give it a little bit of dusty, kind of aged lookingness. And you know, while I have that in my brush, I'm going to spread some of that around. And I think let's have a little bit going in our background. Okay, and I've mixed some more of that, just an equal mix with some white, giving this lovely, lovely teal color. And we're going to just line a drop shading on the other side, on the left sides. Okay, and I'm going to drop this stencil right back over the top, and I'm just going to do a couple little cross-hatchy lines in there, use it as a mask with that same teal color. That way I don't have to be neat, I don't have to tape. I could also just drop the line back over. Simple Simon. Okay, and we've got just a little bit more water. That same mix. And we're going to go through and just go find. Got my Raphael brush, and I need to not have it so saturated. I'm going to go through and just find a few of the edges of our chicken wire, going underneath. Okay, and that's just giving it just a little bit, a hint of detail. In order to carry my color around just a little bit more, I'm going to take this primary magenta, and I'm going to just glaze the bottom of the letter just a little bit with just some sheer color. And that'll just carry some of that pink over there, and it won't be so isolated. Okay, and then I think we could also go ahead and take a teeny bit of that same magenta color, and we can go into our leaves with just a little bit. And potentially into the background area. Just to kind of spread that around. Just a little bit of hint of here and there. Okay, and I don't know if you can see it very well. Yeah, loving these sheer colors. Amazing. Okay, we're going to take our interference gold, shake that puppy up, lay it in a line. I'm going to put just a little bit of something else going around here. So we're going to go ahead and band this with the gold. we'll take a little bit of our gold and bring it through the middle of the letters. Because it's transparent, it's not going to cover up anything. Just scumble over those high spots. Yeah, that gives those just a little bit more magic. Okay. I say done.